Welcome to InSight. I'm your host, Wendy Brokaw. On a series of wet, windy December days, the century-old YMCA building in Salem was torn down while preserving piece by beloved piece, a community-made mosaic. It was an enormous effort by those who handled the delicate removal to the sound of falling masonry and splintering wood all around them. Did it work? Yes. And now we talk of the mosaic's future in Salem's Riverfront Park with Save the Salem Peace Mosaic's Eleanor and Toni Kramer. Eleanor, why was this such a big deal that the mosaic was going to be demolished right along with the YMCA?
Well, it was two big aspects: the process by which it was made and what it actually was completed. The process involved, thanks to Lynn Takata's leadership, the entire community, over 600 people. There were young people, there were elderly people, there were incarcerated youth, there were people who do not generally have a chance to have their creations seen by the public. And then there was what happened, what it became. It was not just a beautiful and unified work of art, but it was an emblem of all that Salem as Oregon's capital city might aspire to be.
You rolled up your sleeves and you got in, Save the Salem Peace Mosaic, and got people to understand we really need to raise the funds.
It was a great deal of work in a short time.
Not everybody thought you'd be able to pull it off.
And quite often we had our own doubts. I mean, how can we do this? But it was so important. It was so important, and ultimately we had a huge amount of support.
And you got a certain amount from the city of Salem itself and from the Oregon State Legislature, the Oregon Community Foundation. A lot of people and individuals stepped up.
Yes, and so many individuals, people who had been involved in the creation of the mosaic to begin with.
Well, Toni, I was there when they did the first day of demolition, and it was heart-stopping, wasn't it?
It was really exciting to be on the premises when they were doing all that demolition. It was almost like an art form, the way that they could move those machines and selectively do some of the demolition.
They had to take a great deal of care with it because it's unreinforced concrete, and a lot of, my gosh, they had to have an out-of-town consultant come in and say, look, we do historical buildings all the time. But it wasn't a piece of cake.
It was not a piece of cake, and that's why we appreciate the efforts by all of the businesses that worked with us for the construction and the engineering and the demolition, because they did. They really had a different project on their hands.
And in the rain.
There was some challenging weather sometimes. I will admit I was cold there.
So we're looking at a plunge cut that's being made to the front of the building so that the contractors can then line up the cut through the masonry wall and make those cuts from the back side.
Well, all right, so we talk about the restoration of it to a new home. So it's a phased project. Mm-hmm. What was phase one? Obviously raising the money for it, but phase one was the actual removal. What's phase two?
Phase two is while the mosaic is being securely stored, Save the Salem Peace Mosaic will need to make the plans, again with the professional engineer, to protect it, make sure that if there's anything that needs to be done structurally to help the integrity of the mosaic the way it is now, to work with the architect in terms of planning for its incorporation into the plans at the Riverfront Carousel, and of course supporting the carousel in their efforts to see this building come to fruition.
I love the fact that it's going to be right there by the carousel and in the whole area down there at Riverfront Park. What's it going to adorn now? And what's it going to take to put it on this new building? And are there any repairs that need to be done or additions?
There's so many questions rolled into one there. The addition at the carousel is something called the stables, and it will be a studio for the carousel artists, giving them enough space and storage space for their work, and an opportunity for the public to see them at work. And the mosaic will be on an outside wall, so the color scheme will still be beautiful and striking.
And as I'm hearing you, and Toni, correct me, this is going to be added to a little bit so that it blends with its new home, and that too is part of the journey.
I'm not going to commit on behalf of the carousel as to the exact dimensions of the new building, but there is potential to fill in an additional part on the mosaic as it stands right now.
And I'm sure some community people will be happy to step up and
yes.
fill that need with you.
I agree that there will be people that if that happens, they would be very excited.
Let's leave people with the thought of there's still work to be done to raise money, and I think you can tell us how they can best get in touch with you.
Things we have Save the Salem Peace Mosaic.org. We have Facebook that is Save the Salem Peace Mosaic, and we have Instagram, which is Save the Salem Peace Mosaic. Everything is Save the Salem Peace Mosaic, easy to remember.
And we can't leave the program without talking about Lynn Takata, the wonderful mosaic artist whose project this was and whose vision is now entering a new phase. It's been saved and now it's having a new home. What are her thoughts? You talk to her all the time.
What comes to my mind most is how important to her the creations of individual members of the community are. When she talks about the mosaic, it's stories. It's stories of particular young people in workshops, of incarcerated youth who carefully thought about the placement of the panda on the tree with the animal faces so it would be at a level that a child could touch. Story after story. For her, when it's saving the mosaic, I think it is most deeply saving the work of those students.
I was really happy we went to the storage facility after the move, and I was there when 3 of the blocks were unwrapped. It's like unwrapping a Christmas present, and it's all there. It's looks like it. It's still beautiful. It still looks like the mosaic. And like we said, there were some anticipated, we had to cut it to do things, but it's there, Wendy. It looks just like the mosaic, except it's in pieces.
No,
Thank you.
big pieces.
Big pieces.
Big pieces that need to be fit together again.
We have the little ones, but then the 6,000, 8,000 pound pieces.
Whoa!
Yes.
Oh.
That kind of pieces.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on InSight. This is a wonderful way to begin the new year and the new decade.
2020 has been excellent so far. I'm very happy.
Thank you for joining us today on InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw.